I was thinking about reasons why I do stand-up. And reasons why I work at a restaurant. And how they're very, very similar. But I've gotten in just as much trouble from saying things on stage that upset people as I have saying things off stage that upset people. Even when I confront those people and say, I'm sorry if I hurt your feelings, or I'm sorry if that came across the way that it came across to you. That was not my intention, and this is how I really feel. But I will say I have the tendency to like double, triple, quadruple down on anything I really believe in. And so, if HR approaches me, as HR has, and they have issues with things that I have said, statements I have made, politics I hold, you're not allowed to criticize minorities at all. The only people you're allowed to criticize in America are white men. Preferably rich white men. I mean, they don't really complain about rich black people. The ones that say they're so oppressed. they don't complain about them. Like, I will say there's definitely a bias against men, though. And I've seen it enough times, and I witnessed it recently. People are just really, really sensitive about women. And it's not doing women any favors, let me tell you. It's not doing women any favors. It'd be one thing if you were actually protecting women from actually aggressive behavior. But whatever y'all consider microaggressions, like if a woman is sitting in, what is going on here? Okay. Somebody's got their emergency lights on. Yeah, so if a woman is at an open mic or like a comedy show or whatever, like she should expect to be insulted, all right? Like, this is why women shouldn't be, I know I sound fascist, but I just feel like women shouldn't even be allowed to do it. Because, if this is their kind of attitude, if they get like upset that anybody says anything mean about women, then it's like obviously like they're in the wrong place. But yeah, I just think that we should, as comedians, we should be allowed to joke and bitch and yell about anything, and the fact that people are fine with you talking trash about certain groups of people, but not all groups of people, because some people are oppressed because we do Marxist math around here. We put everybody on a point system, even though we want to pretend that we believe in equality, equality will never be a thing. It doesn't matter like how much Republicans insist that we have equal opportunity, we don't. It doesn't matter how much Democrats insist that they're going to force equality, they won't, okay? Like, equality will never, ever, ever be a thing, which is why we should keep that in mind. Like, we should be kinder to people because of that. Because there are a lot of people that grew up without a childhood, Plenty of those people. There are people that grew up without childhood, and there are people that grew up, without the things that they were supposed to have. And I look at that on a psychological level way more than I think my society does. Because if they actually took that into consideration, they would be a lot more compassionate and they would have way more understanding. But because they know little to nothing about psychology, they just want to assume that if somebody is a selfish piece of shit, it's because they're a selfish piece of shit, you know? It might not be because they didn't have the tools growing up. They didn't have the wherewithal to understand what was going on and why it was going on. So a lot of these people, you know, they hold on to that shame, but they can't admit that they're ashamed, because who wants to admit that they're ashamed? That's why the Holy Eucharist is so important. That's why I get so much out of it. Because I'm the type of person that really, really holds on to my shame. It's like I relish it in a way. And you know, a lot of people fault me for that, and they say, well, that's not a good thing. Like, you should be kinder to yourself. Well, something I realized recently, you know, if you love somebody, you take on that person as your own. And if they suffer, you suffer with them, you know? That's what true love is. That's why Jesus is the best example of that. So, you know, in relation to my refusal to be in a romantic relationship ever again, I think the reason for that is because I'm like constantly feeling the problems of other people, you know? And as much as I say that I hate society, it's really because I love people and I want the best for them. And it seems to me that they don't want the best for themselves, which is why they don't do more self-evaluation. Because if they did more self-evaluation, they'd realize, wow, I keep putting myself in the same situations. Maybe I should cut that shit out. But anyway, my exit is fast approaching. It just seems like, yeah, people don't want to do the work on themselves to have a better life. But, you know, that's also because they really don't know how to love themselves. And so something that I didn't realize this until way later. But like when I was in the process of quitting drinking, I started to look at myself like I was another person. Like the same way I look at other people, like, oh, you're a part of me. I could be you and you could be me. I started seeing myself in like the reverse. So instead of beating myself up over things that I was doing, I pretended that I was somebody else and I was watching myself do it as somebody else. And that really helped me to like realize that I needed to stop. Because it was like, I would say most people see it the opposite way. Most people don't see everyone as an extension of themselves. And so naturally, if they're in a relationship, like a committed relationship, they can only do that for like one person. They can only like extend themselves to that one person. Whereas somebody that's an artist, it's like all that stuff is like so it's somewhat toxic, but it's also like it's so crucial to that person's existence. And it's a huge part of why they make art. You know, like I know that I'm never gonna have like a normal relationship. I know that I'm never gonna be like the type of person that goes anywhere and fits in with that group of sheep. You know, even with comedy, you'd think that I would fit in with comics. I really don't. I'm the quietest one. I hardly say a word. Look at that. Is there a pit stain yet? I'm sure there will be. I hate it. I hate sweating like a man. I don't hate thinking like a man, though. I think that's a good thing. Thinking like a man means that I don't think of myself as a victim. But yeah. Yeah, I think my alcoholism allowed me to have empathy for myself. Whereas before, I think I was a very toxic empath, and I allowed people to walk all over me and take advantage of me and treat me like shit because I didn't value myself. And then when I started to see myself as somebody else, I began to value myself more. And in valuing myself more, I'm not going to put up with the shit that I put up with before when I thought so low of myself that it didn't matter that I woke up in piss, and it didn't matter that I was sleeping with strangers, and it didn't matter that I couldn't keep a job because I was such a failure. You know? So, I'm debating on, like, whether or not I'm gonna attempt to, like, do some sort of, like, I don't want to say, like, spiritual workbook or something gay like that, but I think that it would probably benefit a lot of people to hear what I just said. But yeah, I'm just so not organized. You know, maybe if I had somebody working for me, which, you know, the chances of that are slim to none since I don't trust people. But maybe if I had some fucking control freak that could take all my thoughts and position them in such a way that would bring out my brilliance in a more socially acceptable way. Because I just feel like I'm too disorganized. Like, this world is very structured, you know? Whereas, like, the mentally ill person's a lot more chaotic, the mentally ill person's a lot more anarchistic. So, well, I guess it just depends on the mental illness, though. So it's like you have personality disorders that are obsessed with structure, and then you have personality disorders that are like the complete opposite, that are just so discombobulated it's not even funny. Like, quite literally, like, I absolutely hate it, because I know that if I were a little bit more combobulated, I would probably be a lot farther in my life. But maybe I'm supposed to be in the position that I'm in, you know? I have to look at it like that, because it's all about accepting the things that you can't change and understanding, okay, there are things that I can tweak a little bit. There are things that I can improve upon. But there are things about myself that are very much set in stone. And, you know, alcoholism is not one of them. I mean, a lot of people insist that they have a disease no matter what. Well, when you don't drink, you don't have anywhere near the amount of symptoms from that said disease as you would if you continue to drink. So it seems kind of counterintuitive to keep insisting that you have a disease, that you're doing whatever you can through your sobriety to get away from, right? Let's see if my mom has called me. Look at the salad I made last night. I took a picture of it, Vortex. That's how impressed I was with myself. Oh, it's one of my favorite times in the whole world. Because it's the opposite of one of my other favorite times. Hold on, I gotta get my shoes out of the trunk. But yeah, so much of our culture is oppositional to like what makes emotional sense. And I know that sounds like an oxymoron, but contrary to what you hear from people that just hate anything that could possibly be interpreted as feminine, emotions are a good thing, okay? It's just that women don't understand our emotions. And because we don't understand our emotions and we think that we're victims, we have no choice but to manipulate people, you know? Like that's what women do. And if women can understand this about themselves and go, okay, these are my emotions and I recognize this in myself and this is why I feel the way that I do. If they're able to do that, then it's like they can steer it in a much better direction. But because so many women refuse to admit fault, refuse to admit that they're part of the situation, like they helped create the situation that they're complaining about, it's like, yeah, they can't possibly improve upon their behavior if they insist that it's not their fault, you know? But I stress, if they could imagine themselves, if they could just take themselves out and imagine, like, another person, like, making the same decisions that they make, they would probably make different decisions. You know? I just think that that's a really helpful exercise, but I think that that's probably a really painful thing for most people to do because most people don't want to be that deep and think too far into their decision making, which is stupid because, like, it's your life. Which means, like, if you have a shitty life, it's because of you. I mean, there are definitely extenuating circumstances that are out of one's control. But what is in your control is your interpretation. What is in your control is the next step that you take. You know? So, consciousness is a bitch, ain't it?